Everyone loves capes. Even outside of the account community, capes are the most sought after cosmetic in all of Minecraft, and for good reason. Out of the nearly 40 million Minecraft Java accounts, less than 30,000 have an official cape, and those that don't have to make do with a cheap Optifine cape or something similar. Now, don't get me wrong, these capes are far from common, but they have become more and more common over the years. And with the new migration cape that Mojang will be implementing within a few months, it's likely that normal cape accounts will lose at least some of their rarity. However, accounts aren't limited to just one cape. Through attending Minecon events, winning tournaments, working for Mojang, and more, numerous players have managed to have 2 or more capes to their name. Now, since 2017, there's only been one way to do this, and that's to apply capes via Minecon codes, all of which stopped working just a few months back, and even that has its limits. Since 2011 capes were applied by username, this method only allows you to get a maximum of 4 capes, and that's if you were willing to spend the roughly $4,000 it would cost to buy these from third-party traders. Not to mention the days, weeks, months even it would take to find one for sale. But what about those that have gone beyond this? What about accounts with 5 capes, or in the case of some, even more than that? Well, their history is extensive, but until now it's been largely unknown to the public. So, in today's episode of Minecraft Uncovered, we explore the history of Minecraft's Pentacape accounts. Now, there are 18 of these known to have ever existed, with 2 of them having capes removed and 6 or 7 more being locked, depending who you ask. That means that just half of these incredibly rare accounts are still around, all of which are very active. There are other accounts that might have 5 capes, but we'll talk about those later. For now, we'll be looking into the confirmed 5 capes, going from those I've talked about in the past or don't know much about, to accounts with incredibly long, detailed, and honestly rather chaotic histories, starting with the Persian Pair. Now, I've talked about these several times before, like in my video about lost capes last month, so I won't go into too much detail about their story. If you want the full story, you probably should check that video out. Anyways, the basic tale behind them is that they each got stolen by Polish hackers. Alyssa with Persian Gulf, and X-Citrus and Haraby with Persian Cat, both of which were part of a small group of Hexacape or 6-cape accounts, all of which are now unusable. After a few months of them being played on by these hackers, both accounts were locked and all capes were removed. Of course, like I said, there is a much longer story involving these accounts and their owners, the name MCs being sold, illegal name changes, and so on. I am trying to keep this video somewhat brief though, and it's already looking like it'll be about 20 minutes long, so anything I can do to shorten it, I will. That also means I should stop talking about it, so let's move on. Next up, we have Andrew KM, Rock Germany, and Chad the DJ, all 3 of which are owned by well-known server owners and have never been sold, locked, hacked, or anything like that to the best of my knowledge. Andrew KM owns the Eco City Craft server, one of the largest economy servers to ever exist. He's also the only one of these 3 who's in the community, as he has an account on MC Market which he doesn't really use, except for earlier this year when he gave out a few $100s to random members of the site for no obvious reason. Good guy, Andrew. Rock Germany is owned by some German guy, as I'm sure you could guess by the name, who owns and operates a server called Unlimited World. It seems to be decently big, but as I don't speak German, I don't really know much about it other than there was recently a Halloween event that includes jump and runs, which I'm assuming means there's parkour on the server. The front page of their website is also a little bit weird, and it has a bunch of surveys that seem to be related to account security, asking about transaction IDs, emails, migration, and so on. I also want to mention that this guy has the username Rock on another account, so he definitely seems to be aware of how rare his accounts are, but like I said, they've never been sold. Finally, we have Chad the DJ. Now, capes.cc, which is a great website for those of you that are interested in cape accounts, says that Chad the DJ is locked. I have no idea where they got this info from, but I can't find anything backing it up, so I am assuming that it's still free. It's been active in the past few months, and Chad himself actually used to own MC Gamer's massive MCSG server. I don't see any suspicious activity that would make me think it's been hacked or anything though, so I really think that lock thing on capes.cc must have just been a mistake. If not though, MC Gamer might be in some serious trouble. Now we have the content creators, one of which is a very big YouTuber and one of which is a not quite so big streamer. We'll start with the YouTuber, and that YouTuber is, of course, AntVenom. Ant has the 5 Minecon capes, and he has videos on YouTube from the 2011, 2013, 2015, and 2018 Minecons. The official Minecraft wiki says he was in there in 2016, but interestingly enough, nothing for 2012. Who knows, maybe Mojang gave him the cape anyways, and to be honest, he's one of the few people where I can honestly say he deserves it. Ant has been recently looking more into the account community, and as you can see on his name MC, he surrounds himself with OG names, dupe accounts, special capes, and more. He was even spotted on Blockomania a few times recently, and I have 2 screenshots to share with you of some huge cape lineups he was part of. I don't want to talk too much about him since I might make a separate video about his stay on YouTube and how it's affected Minecraft videos as a whole, but he's an interesting case to be sure. The other content creator is a streamer by the name of Jeffska, owning the first OG Pentacape on this list, Jeff. Like I said, Jeffska isn't nearly as big as Ant Venom, but he's still doing very well for himself and arguably better than me, so he's not one to be ignored. Unfortunately, it was that status as a famous OG Pentacape that resulted in his account being stolen just over a month ago by someone known as Debug. Now, Debug has had his fair share of hacked accounts, and some are even still around like a Debug, a Mojang cape, but the most common outcome is that he loses these accounts just days after, as you'll be seeing later in the video. That's exactly what happened here too, because Jeff ended up back in the original owner's hands after just 3 days, where it's stayed ever since. Hopefully, Jeff will put on 2FA when Microsoft account migration comes out, because I definitely think he'll need it. After Jeff is the legit accounts being Zun, Wham, and Chelsea. Zun is extremely active on Blockmania and Hypixel and seems to have been owned by him as long as the recorded history goes. I've tried contacting him, but he says he doesn't have a Discord or anywhere to chat, which I've been told is just a straight up lie. No hard feelings though. Wham is a bit of a weirder situation. It was inactive for a very long time, but returned around October 7th. Interestingly, even though the account was created in 2014, it has capes from 2011, 2012, and 2013 Minecons. Of course, 2012 and 2013 capes were applied via code, so you could still get them after Minecon was over, but the 2011 Minecon cape was applied via username, meaning that once Minecon was over, that was it. My personal guess is that this account was owned by somebody that has close ties to Mojang, but doesn't actually work there. The account was created with the name Dedicated in February of 2014, but was completely unused for an entire year until name changes came out in February of 2015. To me, that suggests that name changes might have been planned to come out a year earlier, and since there are documented name changes going far beyond February 2015, it's very possible that was the case. Once name changes were released though, the name was changed from Dedicated to Wham, referencing a meme from Minecon 2013. Once again, this just shows that it was clearly planned in advance, so he must have had plans to name change around 2014 when the account was created. Then, at some point after the name was changed, somebody at Mojang applied all the capes to his account, and I've heard they were moved from alt accounts that had a cape each that he combined onto the Wham account. Is that really fair? Who knows, who cares? All that matters is that it's easily one of the cleanest 5 capes out there. And the last of the 3 remaining legit 5 capes is Chelsea. Now, you do have to stretch the definition of legit a little bit to fit Chelsea in here, but it's a lot different than any of the other accounts we'll be talking about after this, so I thought it was best to put it here instead. The history starts all the way back in early 2016, where it was rumored that the account was bought off an alt website when nobody knew if it had capes, though I don't know how true that story is. By October of the same year, it made its way to an MCM user by the name of Bob Newman, who sold it to a band user known as Dexu on January 28th of 2017 as a triple cape, with a 2011, 2012, and either 2013 or 2015 cape. Just under 3 months later, Dexu sold it to Sapphire Luna, also known as Chelsea, for just $380. Chelsea decided to keep the account and ended up applying a 2016 and a 2013 or 2015 cape to it, whichever one it was missing, as well as sniping the OG name Chelsea onto the account. It seems to still be active and unlocked since it hasn't been traded in nearly 4 years now. Also, before we move on, I found this ancient video footage of the account from late 2014, presumably by the original owner back when the username on the account had never been changed from Krog. I don't know if he's still active, but if so, he doesn't seem to have a problem with Chelsea owning his incredibly rare account. And finally, we have the not so legit accounts. Some of these have either very private histories or very short histories, but others are long enough to be made into a video just by themselves. Once again, since I don't want the video to be 2 hours long, I'll be using a pretty short history for each, starting with Bwiz852. This account was inactive for a very long time, but just recently was acquired by someone in the community, most likely by being pulled through Mojang support. The name was changed to Zach the King back in late September, but it was changed back to Bwiz852 just a few weeks ago, so it might have been taken back by the original owner. Along with Bwiz is _NBLHeim_, another account that appears to have been stolen off the owner. The earliest mention of it being in the community that I could find is of a guy named Kev who got the account through Comcast surprisingly, back when it only had 2 of the 5 capes cached. Kev says it got pulled by the original owner and name changed, but everyone else I've talked to says it was stolen off Kev by another guy by the name of BZL, who also owns some other insane accounts like Nose, Yard, God, Wood, and AkronMan1, which has the exclusive millionth customer Star Cape. Apparently, BZL was trying to sell NBLheim earlier this year, but since then, the account has gone silent, and I haven't heard anything about its whereabouts for over half a year, outside of the assumption that it's been locked by Mojang for suspicious activity. The last one of these with a somewhat short history is Red, and that's mainly because it's very private. What I can say though is that the owner history is not the best. As of recently, the account is thought to be locked, with the only reliable info I can find being this clip from an X-in-a-Box interview with Fraud and Andre.
So then the next one is Red.
I got locked on the person Gavin sold to, nothing like this.
I sold to him months ago and
Same
it
thing
just
with
got
Pink.
locked. Yeah, same thing with Pink. Me and Misfit sold it to what's his name, Debug, and it got locked.
All the accounts after this are going to have their own section, because the histories are very extensive, and we'll be starting with Nobleman. Now, I forgot to mention 3 accounts in my video about lost capes, but fortunately for me, all 3 of their histories are covered in this one story. Originally, Nobleman's account was actually bought from a Roblox ex-admin a long time ago with 2011, 2012, and 2013 capes, which explains why the past username was Roblox. He ended up buying a Cobalt cape off a guy named CEO who had won the tournament a few times and either attended Minecon or bought codes to get his 2015 and 2016 capes, resulting in the world's first 6 cape account. It's rumored that Mark, the current holder for most capes, added them to his account because he was jealous of Nobleman. That's not quite it for Nobleman's story though. All the way back in 2016, Nobleman actually had a 7th cape, a Realms Mapmaker cape. Now, Nobleman didn't have much skill in building maps himself, but one thing he did have was money, and quite a lot of it at that. So when he wanted the Realms cape, he decided to pay a mapmaker by the name of Vec to create 3 Realms-worthy maps and to credit Nobleman and another guy, Pat, for building it. His plan did end up working for a while when Winter's Hearth, Desert Hook, and Jungle Retreat were all accepted into Realms, but soon after, Mark found out about their plan and promptly took away the capes from all 3 of them. The accounts weren't locked, but Nobleman wasn't done yet, and possibly to make up the money he lost by paying for this removed mapmaker cape, he ended up scamming around $5,000 with fake Cobalt cape codes, and quickly got his rare account disabled by Mojang. Following Nobleman is Conan, and it has a very long list of owners. Bear in mind this most likely isn't 100% accurate, but it's the most cohesive history that I could come up with. The original owner of the account, who was a staff member on the Cobalt forum and went to Minecon 2012, sold it to our friend Pat that we mentioned in the Nobleman story. It was then sold to a guy named Alex who liked to share the account with his friends, which is probably one of the reasons it's been locked so many times. The next few months of the account's history are a bit of a haze for me, and I don't really know a lot about them. It seems to have gone through 2, maybe 3 owners and got the 2013, 2015, and 2016 capes added somewhere in there, turning it into the Pentacape it is today. Eventually, the account made its way to an unknown buyer who got it by trading an OG2 character and $400, where it was locked on him at some point before January of this year and sat for months. Apparently though, he managed to get it unlocked in late April and sold it for $2,000 on June 7th, and then it was sold again for the same price just 4 days later. By August, the account had been locked, likely because of too many people logging in and getting it disabled for suspicious activity. Just 11 days later though, the account was for sale for $4,000, now with the original info to the account which Fraud bought off the original owner. He sold it to a guy named Casey, who then tried to sell it again the same day as a locked account. It ended up selling later that month, but since then, nobody really knows what's happened to it. Did it get unlocked? Did it get sold again? Honestly, that's a part of the story that we probably won't know about for a while. Tsar Nicholas is up next, and is one of just 2 of these accounts that seems to have been stolen from the original owner and stayed around long enough to tell the tale. It originally came into the community when it was pulled by 2 big cape traders by the names of Rin and Nun, back when there were only 3 capes on the account. Way back in 2017, they sold it to a guy named Combat Log, and he was the one that added the 2016 cape code. The time span between him getting the account in 2017 and it resurfacing in 2020 is a bit of a mystery, at least to me, but it was owned by Bird starting in March of this year, and he applied the final 2015 code that made it into a Pentacape account. Originally, the username Egg was supposed to be sniped on the account to turn it into one of the rare OG 3-letter Pentacapes, but when the name was out-sniped by a guy named XH7, the account wasn't really used much after. Apparently, it got locked on July 27th, and despite the community's best efforts, as of October 17th, it was still locked with no help from Mojang. And now for the star of the show, the god tier OG, the 3-letter name, the infamous Hexacape account, Fox. The history on this account probably deserves its own video, honestly, but since it's gotten quite convoluted over the years, we should hopefully be able to fit it in here. The story starts all the way back in early 2016, when the account was just a double cape. A member of the community known as Kavan brute force cracked the account with egg crack, which nowadays isn't really useful for much more than stealing NFAs from lists of leaked emails and passwords. Apparently, the password to the account was either Jasper or Flower, depending who you ask. Unlike with many of these accounts, the original owner never actually came into the picture. Rumor has it that Ian Jones, which is the guy that registered the account, might not even be alive anymore. Anyways, Kavan ended up exit scamming for the account new and went on a bit of a mad rampage trying to steal as much money from players as he could, using fake Cobalt codes on Hypixel to trick unsuspecting kids into getting scammed. He did give out a legitimate code once, the already used Cobalt code for Fox. It was given to the owner of the account, Matthew, and when he asked Mojang support to apply it, they actually did for about a week before they realized it was already used and took the cape away. Around that time, Minecon 2016 was about to happen, so Kavan was able to easily purchase or scam a 2016 code off a player who went, or maybe he went himself, who knows. Fox made its way to a legitimate owner shortly afterwards and was traded around a few times between some more legitimate players, which is how the 2013 and 2015 capes came to the account. Eventually though, it came to a very big name in the community, but not for the right reasons: Xavier. Although his accolades in the Minecraft community are generally recognized as positive, owning one-character usernames for example, his infamy outside of Minecraft was gained through the act of sim swapping. Back in August of 2018, he was arrested for identity theft, grand theft, and computer intrusion, taking a stash of rare Minecraft accounts along with him. At some point though, Fox came back to the community when it was sold by an anonymous merchant along with the account Nova. The history after that is a bit fuzzy, but from what I can tell, it was sold back in April for around $10,000 to the owner of Zonix, though I've also heard that that was a myth and that it sold to a normal guy for just $5,000, which is still a pretty astronomical amount mind you, and it got locked on July 31st of this year, bringing an end to the Oscar-worthy story of Fox. And that brings us to our final account, Mark. Besides getting jealous of Nobleman, taking 3 mapmaker capes away from players, and pushing for capes to become a normal cosmetic instead of a rare reward, Mark is a former Mojang support worker and Realms manager. With the potential shutdown of Realms in a few months, who knows what he'll go on to do. Mark's account doesn't really have too much history behind it, except for one thing: a duplicate Mark account that was around for just a few days before it mysteriously disappeared from the game. It turns out that this was actually the result of an exploit based on the Scrolls API being confused with Minecraft. A few players used it to troll and make fake Minecraft accounts with the names Dog, Cat, Mark, Dinnerbone, and more. Almost all of these are gone with no record left, but just a few weeks back, the UUID to the fake Mark account resurfaced and was posted in my Discord server, and checking it on the Mojang API suggests the account still exists, completely disabled in a Minecraft account limbo. And that is the history of Minecraft's known Pentacape accounts, but they aren't the only ones that exist. Surely there have been some players that made it to all 5 Minecons, and there have definitely been YouTubers like Basherverse, SethBling, Captain Sparkles, and so on. Though we can't see them yet, it's only a matter of time before a new Pentacape is found, and when it is, you can be sure that an entirely new chapter of Minecraft history will be written. Hope you all enjoyed. This is probably my most researched video outside of the history of Hypixel, so sorry it took so long to come out, but it's done now. I've got tons of videos in the pipeline right now, and by the time you see this, I should have about 3 videos finished and 2 more being actively worked on, so stay tuned. Anyways, that's it, so have a good one guys. Peace.